Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. It's your DFS preview for the 2021 Tour Championship. I'm going to go over everything you need to know prior to building your DFS lineups this week. If you want to see what I'll cover in depth, I do have timestamps in the description below. You can also find them on YouTube's progress bar. All you got to do is hover over them and you'll see them there. But I figured let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump right into it. Oh, I will say there is a giveaway. I just want to know, are you playing Patrick Cantlay this week? Yes or no? You can leave that in the comment section. Like the video, comment, be subscribed. Email me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com and you can have access to the dream sheet and the bucket system summary that we'll go over in this video. So again, that's all you have to do, those 4 steps. If you're on Twitter, like the tweet that I send out, retweet it, obviously follow, and I will reach out to you. But that's it. If you want to have access to free data, basically, and be able to build your lineups accordingly. All right, tournament fact sheet. We are at the Tour Championship, East Lake Golf Club. PGA Tour has played here forever. It's a par 70, 7,300 yards. Load that up in your data research. Par 70 is going to be pretty easy to reach. The all rounds under 70 bonus on DraftKings, that's worth 5 points. It's a pretty nice bonus to have. It helped propel me in a couple contests to get to first place last week at the BMW Championship, because that was the birdie fest and super easy to get there as well. But that's going to matter. I still would lean, if you had to choose between golfers who have a steady like 2 under score versus volatility, like those that can get birdies in bunches but also bogeys in bunches, I would lean towards the latter. Birdies are going to matter more this week, especially with the staggered scoring that they have. And I'll get a little bit more into that when we get into the dream sheet, but there is a scoring component this week for placement points on DraftKings that you're going to have to be aware of. Either way, that's where I would lean. I still lean birdie golfers. This course is a little bit tougher than, say, what we saw last week at Caves Valley, I believe the golf course was called. Yeah, I know the golf course was called Caves Valley. In Owings Mills, Maryland. So that's all I have to say, but yeah, that bonus would be nice to get. And if you can find both that can get birdies and shoot under 70, that'd be amazing. Average green size, 6,000 square feet. That seems pretty close to average on tour. I don't think that's big. I don't think that's small. So yeah, nothing really to worry about there. Water, there are a few holes where water is in play. Yeah, 4 seems like a right number. It could even be 3. When I was doing my course breakdown, I didn't really see a lot of water in play, but this seems about right. 4, 3, somewhere around there. We are on Bermuda greens this week. We're on Bermuda everything except for fairways, where you see zoysia grass, and you don't have to worry about tees, honestly. Fairways, rough, and greens. Rough, this is what you want to look for around the green. Obviously, approach shots can also be played from Bermuda. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. Load them up both for approach and around the green with zoysia grass and Bermuda grass if you have those stats available. I'll just be looking at Bermuda. I'm not going to worry too much about zoysia grass, but obviously that is another data point you can research. We have Tom Bendelow as our architect with renovation done by Donald Ross and Reese Jones. I don't know what they really did, so I don't think there's much you have to go with by that. And Tom Bendelow, I don't think, has many other courses on the tour or that the tour uses. So architect, probably don't really need to worry about that. But yeah, Bermuda grass, 7,000 or 7,300 yards, par 70s, that kind of stuff. Those are the data points I would go with. Let's move on to the next piece. I like to go to a weather forecast, just to give you an idea of what to expect, or at least what you can see leading up to the week as well. Obviously, weather changes at a moment's notice, so I would always look the day before or the night before the event starts, just to see what happens for that next day. And always keep track of the weather, especially if you're doing showdown slates, because having a morning or an afternoon tee time might matter. And although there are only 30 golfers in this field, I think there's enough time between tee times where you can still use weather as an advantage. So anyways, looking at Atlanta, Georgia's 10-day weather forecast, obviously this is a Monday night. We want to look at Thursday and Friday, really just think about wind. What do we see average wind? And it's 5 to 10 miles an hour, average around 8, I should say. Mostly sunny. Looks like we have some rain on Tuesday, Wednesday that might soften up the golf course, making it a little bit easier to get to. Friday, we have partly cloudy, 7 miles an hour wind. You know what? I can't remember if they re-tee after every single day. I think they still do Thursday, Friday tee times. But something is like going off in my head where I'd have to double check this. If it does change every day, I will definitely make a note of it in the strategy video tomorrow, letting you guys know, hey, obviously we talked about this yesterday, but for as much as I know now, it's still going to be Thursday, Friday pairings, and then they'll repair every, Saturday and Sunday. But as for wind, doesn't look like there's much at all. If you're not aware of the site called Windfinder.com, this is what it looks like. Obviously, pull in Atlanta, Georgia, so you guys have kind of an idea where this golf course is. Atlanta, just take what is this, I-20 across, or GA-154, and scroll down to this little square area. I mean, it's kind of an interesting property. It's just a complete, not square, rectangle. You have East Lake here, and how you would use this is, obviously you can see the wind. You actually have kind of a key over here. You can change everything that you'd like. Right now, I believe it's on gradient. Yeah, if I put edges, you can see the wind direction, but gradient kind of gives you a little bit of motion. But go ahead and drill down on any part of this golf course just to see what the mile per hour is. There are dates down here you can look at, and you can see a 3-hour span. So I'm currently at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, but if I went to Thursday, went to 10 a.m., 6 miles an hour, 1 p.m., 5, 4 p.m., 5. So not a lot of wind so far forecasted. It kind of goes along with the weather forecast that we saw. If we look at 9/3, Friday, September 3rd, that is, this is at 4 p.m., 6 miles an hour, 1 p.m., 6, 10 a.m., 10 miles an hour. So a little bit windier in the morning. That, usually you want to hammer down those morning golfers, but this can change day by day, hour by hour. Definitely look the night before, because even if I'm telling you this right now, this can change. This could either get pushed back where the afternoon suffers through this wind, or this might get pushed, forward to another point in time. I think I tried to forecast wind on a Monday a couple tournaments ago, and when it came down to Thursday, the wind was completely different than I thought, and then Friday was also way different than I thought. So my matchups and stuff like that, I did not plan accordingly. So that's what I say. Look Wednesday night. If you can Thursday morning, because the tee times will be a little bit later, definitely do that. But yeah, Windfinder.com is a great place, especially if you're playing Prize Picks, which obviously I like to do. I like to hammer each of the day's projections by looking at wind forecast, basically. And seeing if it's going to be tough scoring or if it's going to be easy scoring. Less wind, easier scoring. More wind, harder scoring. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and move on to past results and target scores. So if we look, so I think we need to discuss the scoring format. So let me go back to the Dream Sheet. So there's this column here that I have in there called starting score. And based off the FedEx Cup standings, obviously Patrick Cantlay won last week. He vaulted up to the number 1 spot. Jon Rahm had a pretty good finish, did better than Tony Finau. Tony Finau was originally in the first spot, but Jon Rahm is now in... No. I am so sorry. I have this sorted by salary, and that is incorrect. Starting score. There we go. Tony Finau still in second place. My bad. Bryson DeChambeau had a second place finish last week. He is in the 3rd spot, and Jon Rahm's in the 4th spot. You can see those 4 spots have different scoring. And Cameron Smith is in the 5th spot. So those 5 guys have different scoring. And then it kind of groups up from there. 4 under is your, I think, 6th through 10th place. 11th through 15th place is 3 under. 16th through 20th place, 2 under. 21st to 25th place, 1 under. And 26 to 30, we obviously don't have Patrick Reed here, not yet at least. But he would be in the 30th position, and they would all start at even par. But these are your starting scores. So Patrick Cantlay has a huge advantage to start out with. And when we go back to those results, they started this scoring format in 2019. So 2020 and 2019 include that type of scoring. That's why you see 21 under. That's why you see 18 under. So if we take 10 strokes away from who we perceive as first place, then we can forecast, like, obviously this is probably closer to 11 under. This is probably closer to 8 under. And when we look at the rest of the scores, in 2018, Tiger won at 11. Xander won in 2017 at 12. Rory in 2016 at 12. 2015, Spieth won at 9, 11, 13. So the winning, or we'll put it this way, the lowest score has been 13, or around that 11 to 13 under mark. So we can kind of forecast that as the low round. Now, I want to show you something really quickly. If we go to 2020, I have it all here as well. Let me go ahead and throw a filter on this and go by result. So I have starting score, and then I have playing score, and then total score. You can see, obviously, Dustin Johnson won at 21 under. He started in first place, the first place spot, 10 under. And then he shot 11 under, but he wasn't the low round. Xander Schauffele was. Xander was 15 under. So this can happen, obviously. Xander was in the optimal lineup, and we'll go over optimal lineup soon, but he was in the optimal lineup. Dustin Johnson was not. In fact, it was skipped. I mean, he was $15,200. It's a bit too expensive to include in an optimal lineup. But because Xander was 15 under, scored a lot of points. I mean, you can see, actually, if I sort by DK points, looking at last year, Dustin Johnson's starting points here, or I shouldn't say starting points, but although he finished first place, which gives him 30 points, Xander finished second, which gives him 20 points, plus all the birdies that Xander had over DJ, that 15 under, playing score, gave him more points than DJ did. So keep that in mind. And Xander started at -3. He started at -3. I don't know if we're going to see that again this week, but it certainly can happen. I mean, I guess Scotty Scheffler was 4th in DK points, and he started at -2. So really, the starting score doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to who you want to play on DraftKings. So keep that in mind. I would lean towards some of these top guys, especially any of those that are a little bit cheaper in price, like, say, Justin Thomas at $11,900. That works. Or yeah, I suppose that's probably it. Maybe 10,400 Colin Morikawa. He started at 5 under. Like, those will work when you're trying to build your optimal lineup. Or just, I should say, trying to build a lineup to be the optimal lineup. Anyways, that's pretty much how I'm looking at, target score, because it's hard to forecast. First place points they are very valuable. And obviously our guy who's in first place is Patrick Cantlay at $13,400. I believe he's $400 more expensive than Rahm, and he's $1,100 more expensive than DeChambeau. You guys have to make a decision, how would you, or where do you want to start your lineups with? When we look at price tag and stuff like that, remember Xander started at, 5 under? 3 under, sorry. Xander started at 3 under, and Scotty started at 2 under. So, I mean, like, does Rory fulfill that for us? I mean, Xander's right there again. He's at 2 under. His starting score is 2 under, $8,900. That's pretty much what he was last year, right? Xander was 8,900, started at 3 under. Obviously, he's played well, at least last year. I'm sure he could do it again. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 2 under or a 3 under score vault up into 2nd to 5th place and ultimately be your top DraftKings scorer. So when you're creating your laps, you got to think about that. Okay, so that's going to be it for results and target score. Remember, there's 30 golfers in the field, so we have no cut. So we don't have to worry about any type of cut, anything like that. Building lineups is going to be unique. Well, I mean, you're going to have to be unique with building your lineups because a lot of duping can happen. A lot of duplication can happen. Let's go ahead and get to a course breakdown. I have East Lake Golf Course. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I did this 10 minutes before recording the video, so it's still fresh with me. The main takeaway I had, you guys can actually read everything on the screen because I don't have long descriptions. And in fact, I copied a lot of the descriptions from each hole. And I think a lot of the reasoning behind that is because this is an old golf course. It's an old traditional golf course. Again, if we look at that Windfinder, it was built in a rectangle. A patch of land that you would see most traditional golf courses built on. Obviously, the holes go all different directions. It doesn't matter that it was built in this rectangular piece of land. But either way, I think you have a lot of holes. In fact, let me go back to it. You have a lot of holes that kind of go back and forth. They play right alongside each other. That's a very traditional type of golf course. And you're kind of forced to do that when you're on this kind of plot of land. So I think that's why we see a lot of the course pretty much, I wouldn't say resemble itself, but like there are a lot of straightaway par fours in between that 400 to 460 yard mark. And the greens don't really, they're not shaped in any one direction or another. They're very round, very circular. There are some that are shaped for certain shot shapes, but for the most part, this is a long-winded way to tell you there really isn't a shot shape that matters here. I have 2 draws off the tee, 2 fades off the tee that I think are preferred. I have 1 approach that's a draw and 2 that are fades. So yeah, this is probably one of the lowest totals between draws and fades I've seen on tour. It's straight at you. And your second shots are really going to matter. As most golf courses are that way. I hate when people say that, and I just said it myself, but I think a lot of the dough is going to be made putting your shots close, and obviously making your putts. I mean, 11 under is the typical lowest score at this golf course, meaning it's hard. And when it's hard, I mean, you're going to have to depend on your great second shot game as well as your around the green game, and of course putting. So yeah, that's my takeaway when it comes to the course breakdown. No shot shapes really required, and it's going to be tough. You're going to want good ball strikers. And with that, let's go ahead and get into the bucket system. Now, the bucket system is my way to look at the top 10 historical data for specific stats. So I look at course history, I look at recent form, last year's finishing position, last week's finishing position. I like to look at salary, and I like to look at strokes gained within buckets. So there are 6 buckets per stat category, and for most of them, your stat categories, your buckets go through ranges. And the ranges are 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 plus, and did not play. That is relevant for last year's stats, last week's stats, course history, and recent form. But when we get into salary and strokes gained, salary is just based off of each tier. And I thought about changing it for the Tour Championship this week, like 10K and above. Maybe I should make this 11 or even 12K and above just because of the staggered start and how that salary looks, especially when there's a 30-man field. But I decided to leave it as is because I think it's still worth looking at, from this perspective. It's still going to tell you need to have certain golfers at certain price points. And then strokes gained stats, I like to look at it this way. All stats positive And then the two stats to me that probably matter more are, well, I can't say matter more, but what seems to correlate decently is positive off the tee and positive putt. Well, off the tee and putting stats. So strokes gained 2 is your positive off the tee, positive putting. Strokes gained 3 is positive putting, or positive off the tee, negative putting. Strokes gained 4 is negative off the tee, positive putting. Strokes gained 5 is negative, negative, and strokes gained 6 is no strokes gained. These two, do I have one this year? For real? Who is that guy? I don't think I do. I don't know why that's showing up. Very curious as to why this shows as a 1. I think I know why. I think for whatever reason, it counts my header row. All right, well, we'll forget it, or we'll ignore it. So no worries. But either way, those are how I look at them. What I want to do is really just go over the important ones. And I'm not going to waste your time by looking at the top 3 of each bucket, because typically we only have 3 buckets. What I'm going to do is go through the optimal lineups. For each year that I've recorded optimal lineups, I will tell you how frequently a certain bucket has finished, or that has been in the optimal lineup. But first, what I want to do is actually look at each optimal lineup through my recent form tabs. So anyways, here we go. And it's going to be difficult because 2017 and 2018 are going to look a lot different. Do I have 2016 stats too? No. 2017 and 2018 are going to look very different in comparison to 2019 and 2020 because there's no starting score when it comes to 2017, 2018. Really, when you look at salaries, it's your way to see DraftKings' way of scoring certain golfers. A lot of it's based off of recent form. A lot of it's based off of course history, official world golf ranking. A lot of the stats that we ourselves kind of value these golfers at. So when you look at 2018 stats, for instance, we see 2 9Ks, an 8K, and 3 7Ks. So it's a very balanced build. If we look at 2017, we have a 6, 9, 6, 6, 8, 8. So we're leaving $3,300 on the table with that optimal lineup. Obviously, you guys know I don't like that. I probably would replace like Russell Henley with Jordan Spieth. Nope, can't do that. Too expensive. How about John Rahm? There we go, $49,600. So I would do something like this. Although obviously Russell Henley scored more points than John Rahm, most likely based off of his finishing position. But I think 2017 and 2018 are irrelevant. We need to look at 2019 and 2020. So when we look at optimal lineups here, you do have the starting score involved with 2019. And Justin Thomas was your number 1 guy. I'm not sure who's number 2, but I know Brooks was up there as well. Rory came back and won this thing. So he won it being a little bit further behind. He was at 10,600. Xander Schauffele at 9,500. Then we have a 7,500 Paul Casey, 2 8,000s, and a 5,000. That actually used up 49,700. So that was getting as close as you possibly could to 50,000. Let me see if I have 2019 starting scores involved. I do. I forgot. I didn't think I actually had this. So when it comes to starting score, you can see what the actual, wow, okay. This is really interesting. So you can see where they started and how they finished. Patrick Cantlay, 21st place after starting 8 under. He played 9 over par at Eastlake. I don't remember why. I have no idea. I don't know if he was injured. I don't know if he was battling something, but that's pretty bad. 9 over par. Rory shot 13 under par. That was his playing score. So Xander in 2021, or I'm sorry, Xander in 2020 shot 15 under for his playing score. Rory shot 13 under. So I guess that's also in the cards. Somewhere between 13 and 15 could work as well. Oh my goodness. Dustin Johnson, what happened to him? Started 3 under. He was 13 over par, finished 10 over par. Crazy. That's nuts. But either way, getting back to the optimal lineups, total score is what we're looking for. And Rory McIlroy was your guy. And you can see what their starting scores are. We do have a 2 under and a 3 under. Once again, playing well enough to finish 5th and 6th. So keep that in mind. If we go to 2020 optimal lineup, we actually leave $3,200 on the table for the optimal lineup. And in fact, like when I talk about realistic optimal lineups, the $5 Drive the Green had that realistic optimal lineup. So the optimal had 8,900, 11,900, 7,900, 7,000, 5,900, and 5,200. So two $5,000 golfers, a 7 or 2 7s, an 8, and an 11K golfer. Now, leaving $3,200 on the table is hard most weeks. It might not be hard this week because you can make easier justifications because the pricing is so weird that, if we were looking at 2021 DK and we like Brooks, if we were substituting, Brooks in for Rory, we're leaving $1,500 on the table just for doing that. But let's say we still like Brooks, but it's DJ and we're going to replace them. We're nearly leaving $3,000 on the table. And that might be your justification. And I think those are okay pivots to make. I think those are good pivots to make. So when it comes to building your lineup, keep that in mind. Just know, both times that we've had optimal lineups for 2019 and 2020, we've had a 10K golfer up there. We've also had 8K golfers up there. A little different in 2020. We had 2 5Ks, but if you use the Drive the Green lineup, you would replace. Oh no, you would still have 2 5Ks. You would be able to use the $15,000 one. Okay, never mind. I honestly thought I did that differently. I feel like I did that differently. Thought it was Rory. I mean, this works. This would be 49,500, where you would include Rory in there, but that wouldn't be close enough. So never mind. You'd still want Hatton over Rory. Anyways, so when we look at this summary, we can start with salary buckets. And I actually included a nice little function over here. Do I want to include all years? I have this coded that if I hit no, it's only looking at 2019 and 2018. So that's what I'm going to do. That's how I think this should be. Just makes sense, right? So when we look at here, let me actually open this back up so you guys can see it. I know you probably see numbers change on the screen, but you might not actually see what it looks like. So if I scroll all the way up, we see 35 last year ones. That's including all the way back to 2014. If I hit no, it's going to update, and now we only see 11. So it's a nice way to just see how it looks with the new scoring, like the staggering scoring and that kind of stuff. So let me go ahead, clear this out, look at our salaries. What are important salaries to build your lineups around? Well, nearly every salary has been finishing inside the top 10 for 2019 and 2020. You've had under 6.5. We've had 7, 8, 9, and over 10. 10 and over. They've all showed up inside the top 10 every single year. So you can feel comfortable playing those any golfer from those range. 50% though, so obviously 1 out of 2 years. We haven't seen in 6.5. But probably more importantly, optimal lineups. So your important ones to build your lineups around, we have seen at least one golfer in every optimal lineup within that 10K and above range. Now, there are 8 golfers in that bucket this year, so it's going to be a little tougher to choose from. When it comes to, let's see, another bucket you want to choose from, 8K golfers. Now, we've seen them up to 2 golfers within this bucket, but we at least see one every single year. 7K golfers, we've seen at least one. Again, we've seen up to 2. And then 6.5 and below, we want at least one. But again, we've seen 2 inside the optimal lineup. And then the only other range to really consider would be the 9K range. We've seen one golfer from that range once out of 2 years. Again, it's 2 years worth of data. It's hard to normalize that. But if you were kind of wondering where you should go, I think this is where you want to start. And when I account strength of field within each of those salary buckets, I come up with projections of max and min ownerships, basically. What I like to do is take the lower number, round down, take the higher number, round up. So pretend we divide this by 100 or times it by 0.01. Same thing applies. I'll get a 1-digit number, basically, and it'll be like 2.76 is what this one will be. I'll round down to 2. I'll round this up to 5. So basically what I'm saying is I'm projecting somewhere between 2 to 5 10K and above golfers inside the top 10. So if you were, like skeptical of choosing one of those golfers, I'm here to tell you, you want to. It's in your favor. Choosing somewhere between 2 to 5. And I get it. You probably can't build your lineups around more than one of those golfers, but it still holds true. You want at least one. So definitely start your lineups with a 10K and above. Then when it comes down to 9K, when we look at the 9K range, 6% of the strength of field points go towards this. We only have 2 golfers in that 9K range. So it's a little difficult to comprehend because the strength of field is actually pretty decent. Like per golfer, 17 points is not terrible. It's pretty good. With that being said, there are only 2 golfers in that range. And I believe it's Rory and who else? Abram Answer. So Rory's number 1 in my model. I think he's pretty decent to start your lineups with. He is at that 200 mark. And remember, 200 isn't a death sentence. Obviously, Rory has played well here. He's coming in with great form. I really like Rory this week. So that 9K range, although it does... it doesn't really show great projections. This is one of those eyeball tests that, Rory himself can put this bucket into the optimal lineup. But I don't think I'm going to play Rory and Abe Answer. I think it's just going to be one over the other. And it's probably going to be mostly Rory. It's going to be very little Abe. Looking at strokes gain, or the, not strokes gain. Looking at the 8K bucket, we're looking somewhere between 1 to 2, especially when it comes to strength of field, how many golfers are in that bucket, pretty much the success rate that it finishes inside the top 10. Again, we've seen one inside each optimal lineup. I think that's a good way to go too. Same with going with the 7K, although again, it looks a lot like the 9K range. Maybe this is where we actually fade a 7K golfer, despite seeing one inside the optimal lineup. We're forecasting somewhere between 0 to 1. So if we go to the 7K range and take a look at these golfers, who do we have? We have Koepka, Oosthuizen, Sungjae. Those are it. Just the 3 golfers? Is that correct? Just 3. They're actually all really good choices. I don't think there's a bad choice to pick out of either of them. I would say this. I'm only going to select one. I'm not going to load up multiple lineups. I mean, if I am, it's going to be like 5 out of 100 lineups. So 1 out of 20. 1 out of 20 lineups, I might have 2 of these, but that's it. Otherwise, it's just going to be 1. And I don't mind starting with any of these guys. I don't mind starting with Sungjae. I don't mind starting with Brooks. I don't mind starting with Louis. I think they're good golfers to build your lineups around. And then the rest of them, I mean, below 6K, that we have 9 golfers in that bucket this week, and we are forecasting somewhere between 0 to 1. So loading up on 2, probably not the way to go, but we do have some good golfers here, and it starts with Hideki Matsuyama, which I think, yeah, that's feels like a no-brainer. We have Joaquin Niemann, Sergio, Billy Horschel. These are golfers I like. A lot of people are going to be on Daniel Berger, which I think is a right choice. I mean, these guys all have good Bermuda stats. I mean, look, Joaquin Niemann. Let me move my cursor. For 2021 Bermuda stats, Joaquin Niemann is pretty darn good. Actually, if I were to sort this from top to bottom, we're going to find some 5K golfers up here near the top. And it does start with Daniel Berger. He's 4th when it comes to 2021 Bermuda stats. Then it's Niemann. Corey Connors is up there. Scotty Scheffler is up there. So yeah, you have a lot of good golfers with good Bermuda stats in that 5K range as well as 6K range. So keep that in mind. And really, that's all I'm going to talk about with the salary buckets. It's a fun way to kind of think about building your lineups around. And again, this is recording all optimal lineups, so you can see what the minimums are. And obviously, we talked about, the projections that I have. It's based off of strength of field, which golfers are in each of those buckets and what strength of field they bring to each of the buckets. It also includes the success rate that they finish inside the top 10. If you wanted to look, the top 5 frequency also is another key figure or a key fact in it. We've seen a minimum of 3 10K and above golfers inside the top 5 for the 2 years. I'm sorry, I can't say every year, for the 2 years. And then it's the 7K range that we've only seen. It's the only other salary bucket we've seen one time. Not one time. We've seen at least once each of the years inside the top 5. So anyways, that's also something to take into consideration. Let's try to cruise through the rest of this. I don't want to spend a ton of time here, but we're going to look a lot at just the optimal lineups and then your projections. So when it comes to last year buckets, find 2 golfers at least from that 1 to 20 range, and then find 2 golfers who didn't play last year. This is a big bucket. And again, this is only 2 years of data, but if I open it up to all, I probably think this bucket still stays about the same, right? It is the 2nd ranked bucket. We've seen 35 instances where golfers have shown up inside the top 10. So not playing the year before, regardless if you're a rookie or not, it's not going to hinder you. I think it's going to be a help. So I do want to have it just kept here on the 2 years that we've had the staggered pricing. And really, again, last year ones, you want somewhere between 3 to 6. You could build a whole lineup of golfers just from this bucket. I wouldn't do that because we've only seen a max of 4 inside the optimal lineup, but still, there you go. You have 4 that can be built there. In fact, you can build all of your lineups just with these 2 buckets, last year 2s and last year 1s, because we have a min of 2 for each of them. Now, if I go to the dream sheet, again, this is part of the giveaway. You can have access to this, and I will fill out the rest of this information once I get it, and then you will have it. But either way, when we look at last year buckets, and I sort this from 1 to 2, actually, let's just look at all of the ones. I'm sorry. Remember, we're selecting 2 golfers from this bucket. We only have, we have 14. That's nearly half the field, so I can't say we only have. But you want to select 2 from here. Somewhere between 2 to 4, which I think, not terrible. Now, when we look at last year 2s, which obviously these are golfers who did not play last year, I think we have some rookies that haven't played this tournament before. Sam Burns is one of them. Stuart Sink, Eric Van Rooyen. Now, Stu Sink probably played this, 10 years ago or whatever. My data goes back to 2013. So I don't have course history for Stuart Sink from 2013 until this day. But again, when we look at historical data, I don't think it really matters. I should probably... We'll have to look at the course history buckets. But either way, last year finishing positions, keep that in mind. You do have two 10K and above golfers in Spieth and Cantlay. I might play one of them, but I don't think I'm going to play... I'm not going to play both. I don't think I can, but I wouldn't want to. I do find more value in the golfers down here. So, yeah, again, you want to pick somewhere between 2 to 4 from this range. So now it gets a little bit interesting, right? We have 10 golfers to choose from. You have a 20% chance of being right. I mean, you could also pick 4 of these guys because, again, that's what the buckets say. Pick 2 to 4 of them. And then the other bucket, the 3s, this was non-existent. But Bryson starting at -7, it's going to be hard to fade him. It's going to be hard to fade someone like Cameron Smith. And I guess when we look at the summary, we are forecasting somewhere between 1 to 2. So yeah, we might see this one finally finish inside the optimal lineup. So I wouldn't necessarily fade this bucket because we don't see one in the optimal lineup. The projections show somewhere between 1 to 2. And I think that's solid, seeing the golfers that we see here. All right, let's look at the other buckets. Let's go to the last week bucket. And again, looking at the last 2 years, golfers who played the week before, we really see most of the golfers come out of the last week bucket. That's that 1st to 20 range. Makes sense because with the staggered start, if you finished anywhere between, inside the top 20 of the last week, you're going to gain a lot of FedEx points. It's going to get you probably in a good starting spot. I'm projecting somewhere between 3 to 6 from this bucket. We've seen up to 7 golfers every single year, well, of the 2 years that I'm counting, inside the top 10. So I think we probably will see near the same. And we've seen at least 4 in the optimal lineup. And in fact, that's steady. That was last year and the year before, where we saw 4 golfers from this range finish inside the optimal lineup. And then the other bucket would be last week 2s, which is that 20 to 40 range from last week. We have 11 golfers in the bucket this week. That's 3 more than usual. And we are forecasting somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers finishing inside the top 10, at least. 1 to 2, we've seen in the optimal lineup over the last couple of years. So that's interesting. And then last week 3s is that 40 to 60 range. I'm not really projecting good numbers. We see somewhere between 40 spots out of 600. That's what this number means right here. 40 spots I'm going to reserve out of 600 to put golfers from this bucket in there. And we have seen it in the optimal lineup once, but it's very far and few between. So we can look at each of those buckets. Last week 1. Again, we want to choose 4 golfers from here. So now we're seeing Cantlay twice out of buckets we want to select from. I mean, there's Rory, there's Sung Jae. I like Sung Jae. I don't mind some of these guys down here. In fact, I don't mind a lot of these guys, but it is your choice, I think, between Abram Answer and Rory McIlroy. Man, it just, the more and more I see this, I'm really liking Rory. But then the more and more I say I like Rory, the more and more I kind of want to play Abe, just to hedge against myself. So anyways, those are your last week 1s. You want to select at least 4 of them. Actually, what was it, 3? We want to select at least 3? Yeah, at least 3 of them for sure. When it comes to last week 2s, we want to select somewhere between 1 to 3 of these guys. Optimal lineups have been 1 to 2, but I think we could go up to 3 if we wanted to. And you do have some 10K golfers here, including Jordan Spieth, who we saw with Patrick Cantlay in the last score or stats or stat category, the last year buckets. Sorry. Don't know why that was difficult to say. But either way, we have some really interesting potential down here in the 6K and lower range, like Scotty, Corey Connors, Daniel Berger, Joaquin Niemann. Again, we want to see, I suppose, anywhere between 1 to 3. And we've seen 1 to 2 inside the optimal lineup. So kind of goes along with that. I think 2 is a pretty safe number if you wanted to select 2 golfers from this bucket. I mean, the permutations are actually pretty small of lineups that you can create, especially with the salary restrictions that we have. So, I mean, knowing you want somewhere between 1 to 3, I'm liking the salary construction I can do here. And then last week 3s, Xander Hideki and Billy Horschel. These are good golfers. We want what? Somewhere between, well, 0 to 1. So it's iffy, I guess. If I'm playing this, I'm probably going to, I don't mind reserving 40 spots. So I'll probably play Xander in 20. Well, maybe I'll play Xander in like 15, Hideki in 15, and then Billy in 10. I think that's about right. In 100 lineups, that's pretty decent. So, and I don't think I'm going to pair both like 2 of these guys up. I think it's just going to be 1. All right, so we went through our salaries, we went through our last year's, we went through our last week's. Now it's course history and recent form that we want to be looking at. And out of course history, really there's only 2 buckets where we've seen a lot of, well, it's really only 2 buckets. We've seen most of the damage come out of in the optimal lineups. You can see 0 and 0% frequency for course history 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we have 6 golfers in those buckets. So I'm curious to see who those guys are, just first and foremost. I am seeing 0 to 1 course history 3s, so there must be somebody good in this bucket. Cantlay, Cameron Smith, and then drops to the 6K range. So that's super interesting. I mean, as I go through each of these buckets, to me, what's happening is it's really narrowing down my player pool. Because now it's, for this bucket, it's Patrick Cantlay or one of these guys. Or really, it's just pick one. It's 0 to 1 is the projection. So if you're playing Patrick Cantlay, don't play these guys. And if you don't like Patrick Cantlay, then that gives you the option or the opportunity to play any of these guys. It's not a for sure bucket. Again, it's 0 to 1. We haven't seen it inside the optimal lineup yet. So it's a risky bucket to choose from, but it's still available. And seeing Patrick Cantlay, your number 1 guy in the FedEx Cup, he's starting at the top. It actually might be one of those things where he's just too expensive anyways to play. Might be a good reason still not to play Patrick Cantlay. Course history 1s, projecting somewhere between 4 to 8 inside the top 10. And I've seen 2 to 5 inside the optimal lineup. So yeah, course history 1s you want to select. That's your top 20s at this tournament, which isn't hard to do. In fact, I should actually change the course history to be every 5. But still, it's kind of interesting to see the did not plays. Remember what we were talking about with like Stuart Sink and Eric Van Rooyen and stuff like that. These are golfers that have no course history whatsoever. So over the last 2 years, we've seen somewhere between 1 to 4. Which is pretty impressive if you think about it. 1 to 4 who have had 0 course history at this golf course. And it looks like the projections aren't very good. There's only 3 golfers in that bucket this year. Strength of field's not very good. Let's check to see who are the 3 golfers in this course history too. Sam Burns, Stuart Sink, Eric Van Rooyen. Yeah, I think the percentages are pretty good. Like, if I'm putting 42 of my lineups, or 42 positions of the 600 positions that I am allocating, splitting them up between those 3 gives them double-digit ownership. Because I would split that 42 almost evenly amongst these 3 golfers. Like, I don't have an issue. Probably not as much Stuart Sink. I'm really not feeling Stuart Sink this week. I might just go like 20, 22. Honestly, it might be something like that. And this will unlock a lot of possibilities for me to build lineups around. So that's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, 31% success rate. I don't know. I'll have to think about this one because I don't want this to burn me. 42 positions could literally be 42 lineups, because if I'm only putting, one golfer from that bucket in each lineup, then I'm not going to put multiple of them in one lineup. So yeah, 42 out of 100 lineups, that might be too many. I'll have to think about how I want to go about that. Like, what would make sense? So I'll have to think about it. I don't think I want to put 42% of my lineups with that bucket. Anyways, let's move on. Yeah, course history ones. That's where we want to look at. And then recent form. This one will be kind of interesting because this doesn't include this golf course where there's only 30. This actually includes the last 7 weeks and their average finishing position. Your number one bucket's that 20 to 40 range, and we're projecting somewhere between 3 to 7 golfers. And we've seen at least 2 from this bucket inside the optimal lineup. In fact, these 3 buckets, we have seen at least 1 from recent form 2, 2 from recent form 1, and 2 from recent form 3, which means it's pretty spread out. This week, we have 20 golfers in that recent form 1 bucket. We only see usually 14. We usually see 7 inside recent form 2, we usually see 7, and we have 7. Recent form 3, we've seen around 9, and we only have 2 this week, and the strength of field is not good. So let's see who those guys are. Recent form 3 golfers. Kokrak and Sink. So obviously I don't really care for Sink. I don't care for Kokrak either. So that's fine. I think I could probably just completely fade this bucket. 27 points between them. That is very interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. Again, that's 27 positions out of 600. There's only 2 in there, so I can only put 2 in a lineup. So if I split this in half, I'd probably put 13 lineups together with those guys in it. And I think that would be too much anyways. I don't think I'd want to waste my time. I'm just going to forecast this to be a bucket where we don't see 1 in the optimal lineup at all. And that means we're not going to see, although that's pretty remarkable. 2, we usually see 8.5. Man, I don't know. This is one of those times where the historical data is like, yeah, you want to play a golfer from this bucket, but just the eye test doesn't pass. So I don't know. I guess region form 40 to 60. Who were these golfers in the past? 40 to 60. Tyrrell Hatton, 7K. Okay. Sebastian Munoz, 59. So it was just those 2 golfers. And then in 2019, Xander at 95. Okay. And Ches Reavie at 51. Okay. So, I mean, I guess this actually brings in Stu Cink. A $5,000 golfer. Yeah. I mean, it does if we're following those types of patterns, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyways. We can look at the other ones. Recent form 1s. You have 4 of your 10K golfers. Cantlay's up there. JT, DJ, Spieth. Here's our guy, Rory. We also have Xander. A lot of good golfers here. Hideki, Scotty Scheffler, Sung Jae, Brooks, Hovland. Yeah. Murderer's row right here. And, I mean, even these 5K golfers that are down here, I think would be just fine. Looking at recent form 2s, what was our projections here? Somewhere between 1 to 3. Yeah, so now we have the rest of our 10K golfers, which just by themselves, I think is a pretty decent choice. and a good, if you're projecting this bucket to finish inside the optimal lineup or to have an optimal lineup representative, yeah, I think it's pretty easy. Especially even like Louis Oosthuizen at 7,600. As long as his back doesn't, act up, I like his chances. I thought of Morikawa's name and why I've not been talking about him. The Louis Oosthuizen thing reminded me of him. The back thing with Louis, or his neck, whatever. It's either his neck or his back. Colin Morikawa also has a slight injury that he's been dealing with, and he's been playing some pretty poor golf as of late. I think it'd probably be best not to play too many shares of Morikawa, regardless of whatever your game theory is, because it seems as if that injury is affecting his gameplay. So yeah, I think I'm probably staying away from Morikawa. And I think that's probably going to be it for recent form buckets. The last one to talk about, strokes gained. So I don't like to go by rolling stats. I don't really like to look at who's been doing great on approach or off the tee or whatever, because there are too many factors that go into those stats. To me, I feel like if I am looking at strokes gained stats, I really just want to see who's doing well off the tee. Off the tee sets the bar for all of the other strokes gained. It all trickles down from off the tee. Positive off the tee is going to give you the better or the best opportunity for birdies. Personally, buckets 1, 2, 3 for strokes gained for me are usually the buckets I want to pick from. But your strokes gained 4s are the golfers who aren't very good off the tee, but make up for it in putting and approach, usually. So anyways, that's kind of what I'm looking at. And you can see there are 5 golfers who aren't in strokes gained buckets 1, 2, or 3. So strokes gained bucket 4, again, bad off the tee, good putting. I guess we can take a look. We've seen one instance in the optimal lineup for strokes gained 4. Why don't we go first? Oh, I suppose we know this isn't an actual person. This is just a random stat variable somewhere. But strokes gained 4s. And I do my color coding, so what you see here, based off the strokes gained stat. So your orange colors are your 4s. And it's Jordan Spieth, it's Cameron Smith, Kevin Na, Stewart Cink. Again, with the Stewart Cink. Now, we've never seen more than one inside that optimal lineup. Our projections aren't very good for any of these golfers to finish inside the top 10. Like Jordan Spieth has a good shot just based off his starting score, but honestly, his game is so bad that I don't trust him. This is actually a really good reason why not to play Stewart Cink as well. Obviously, we were going through some of the other stats, and Stewart Cink kept popping up because he's one of 3, one of 2 golfers, one of 4 golfers. But yeah, it's just giving me more reason not to play Stewart Cink and not to trust this bucket, because Cameron Smith, I do like. I don't know if his Bermuda stats are that good. It's not terrible. Pretty decent for 2021. Overall, not great. Top 10 success rate, not very good. And his course history here, not good either. He has, a 20th and a 24th place. So, yeah, I probably would stay away from this bucket altogether. It's obviously good to look at. Actually, let me see. Approach stats. Do we have anything positive for any of these guys? Cam Smith, this is your recent form stats, last 7 weeks, your averages. So yeah, there's positive. There's positive even with Kevin Na. How about last week? Kevin Na was positive, as was Cam Smith, and so was Jordan Spieth, believe it or not. And then season long, Spieth is positive, Cam Smith is positive. So for me, Cam Smith is the easy one to pick here. Based off of his consistency with positive approach stats. And obviously he's a really good putter, really good around the green. I'm okay with the off the tee stats not being that good. But for the rest of the guys, yeah, I probably am staying away. And feeling good about it, by the way. I'm feeling good about staying away from these guys. So that leaves us to the other 3 buckets. I think I should just start with strokes gained 3s. Yeah, that would be our lower projections. We're looking somewhere between 1 to 2. We've seen a minimum of 2 from this bucket, and usually this bucket is full of good golfers. We only have 4 in the bucket this week. Okay, so 1 to 2. Here you go. This is where you start your lineups with. JT and Matsuyama maybe for me. Or just select one. And I mean, the easy one for me is Matsuyama. I do like Sergio too, and I think these guys have decent Bermuda stats altogether. So pretty in the middle of the pack for Matsuyama. Really good for Morikawa, and pretty darn good for Justin Thomas. You can see how many Bermuda events that are under these guys' their career numbers. And Morikawa does look good, but remember, he is battling an injury, so I don't know if there's a reason to play Morikawa this week. This might be it. I mean, the projections are pretty good, and we've seen at least 2 inside the optimal lineup every single year from this bucket. So, interesting. We'll see. Strokes gained 2. We want somewhere between 1 to 3. I'm rounding down from 3.13. We've seen at least, or I shouldn't say at least 1. We've seen up to 1 in the optimal lineup, but there was 1 year where we saw 0. So, strokes gained 2 starts with DeChambeau, goes to Answer, Burns, Hovland, Im, Kokrak. There's Berger as well. So for me, if we're looking at optimal lineups, I mean, I'm digging Sungjae Im. There's not much of a difference for starting scores. You know, Sungjae starts at 3 under. He's only a shot behind Answer and Burns, who are at a significant price increase than him. But Daniel Berger starting at even par, yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, Berger can get hot. I mean, so can any of these other guys. But 1 to 3. I mean, you can play up to 3, average around 2, but definitely select one of these guys. I think we will see one in the optimal lineup. And then strokes gained 1 would be the last one to look at. And I mean, these are your elite golfers most of the time. You have 4 golfers, 10K and above. You can see all the starting spots. Maybe stay away from like an Eric Van Rooyen, but the rest of these guys are pretty much slam dunks. Rory has the best Bermuda stats in the field this week. Very good 2021 Bermuda, very good overall Bermuda. Success rate is higher than anybody else to finish inside the top 10. Jon Rahm would be second. Probably not so much 2020 or 2021 Bermuda stats, but still pretty good. DJ sneakily is up there as well. You could probably give him the second place spot for best Bermuda stats in the field, right behind Rory McIlroy. So, yeah, interesting looks at how to start your lineups. Hopefully that all made sense to you guys. If not, you can always reach out to me, SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, email me and I will be happy to send them or to respond to you. And also leave them in the comment section, because that way everybody gets to benefit from any questions you may have that maybe they also have but are too shy to ask. I'm over an hour. I wanted this to be quicker than that, but it's okay. Last tournament of the season. Figure I give it the entire attention span that I have, and try to go through everything as meticulous as I possibly could. So hopefully you guys learned something. Again, there's a giveaway. I want to know, are you starting your lineups with Patrick Cantlay? Yes or no? Maybe you guys have a better idea now that we went through the optimal lineups of past years and the buckets that finished inside those optimal lineups. Just give me a yes or a no in the comment section below. Like the video, be subscribed, and then reach out to me, SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com. Just say, hey, I'd love to have the dream sheet and the bucket summary, and I will send it to you. It'll just be those 2 sheets together. Especially, when I finish them with the rest of the information. I think all that I'm really waiting for, odds, starting hole, tee time, game. I mean, starting hole is going to be 1 for everybody, but it's going to be tee time And then the game will help us determine, which guys are paired up and give us our marquee tee time pairing. So when we go over it in the strategy video tomorrow, you'll have a little bit better idea. But either way, you will definitely be on the list to receive it, to receive the dream sheet, that is. So with that being said, that's it. Oh gosh, I forgot. Twitter. Follow me, like the tweet I'm about to send out with this video attached to it, retweet it, and I will reach out to you. And that's it. That's all I have for you guys. Last tournament of the year, last preview of the season, I should say. I'm excited for next season. I got some things I'm rolling out, so be prepared. Be prepared. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will see you in the strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye.